welcome to Comic Books and Chill, the home of the Stash Bros. I'm Mike, chilling with Chris.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back. We appreciate you tuning in. Please sit back, relax, and enjoy more comic book content.
We're chilling with one of DC's rising stars, the writer of The Flash 1 Minute War, Jeremy Adams, is in his house with us.
What?
But before we talk to Jeremy, please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and please, comment.
Let's get started.
There we go. Our next guest is one of the rising stars in the comics industry.
Killing it, man.
Justice Society, World War II, Batman and Superman, Battle of the Super Sons are two of his recent animated movies.
Crazy.
Current writer of The Flash and newly announced writer of the upcoming Green Lantern series in May.
What?
Of the Stash Land, we bring to you Jeremy Adams.
What?
Hello. So glad to be back.
Dude,
Yes.
I'm gonna have to buy some DC books, bro. I love Green Lantern, man. Like, for real, let's go.
Go there. I got a couple more. I did a couple Marvel Infinite digital things, like a Hawkeye and an Iron Man that's on the Marvel Unlimited app, and I have a couple more of those coming out, which is really fun because
shoot, let's go.
I grew up as a child of both. I was the Blade. I was the Daywalker. I was in both worlds.
Let's dive right on in.
Yeah.
All right, so last time we had you on, Jeremy, you were with your good friend and fellow writer, Tim Sheridan.
Right.
You two were still in the middle of writing Flashpoint Beyond, or at least it was still in the middle of being released. It wasn't, It wasn't all the way done yet. And so you guys really couldn't talk about much.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, what was that? What was that like, writing a limited series with two different writers? Who was the quarterback in all that situation? I'm still intrigued by that.
Well, I mean, listen, the reality is that Tim and I have worked together in various capacities in animation and other stuff. Like we're really good friends. But with Jeff, I mean, it's Jeff Johns. I mean, he was kind of like the story editor of the thing. It was like we would get into a room and we'd all break it down, but he'd be the guy with the marker, and that's a certain amount of control. And really, I think Tim and I approached it as like we were really very new to comic books, and here we have Jeff Johns that's like, well, maybe I would do it this way. We're like, well, yeah, okay, Jeff Johns, whatever you say. And so it was just like a writer's room for a television series. We all contributed ideas and stuff, but I definitely think, at least for my part, I'm sure Tim would say the same thing, is we took our cues from the maestro himself. I mean, he's just done more comics. I've read more comics of his that I've forgotten about more comics that I've read of his. Like, I mean, it's just, he's done so many that you just forget. And he's done so many of such high quality that when a guy like that tells you, hey, you should do a splash page like this, you're like, well, maybe I should listen to that guy. So it was a great learning experience, as much as like we all contributed, we all did things. And then Zermanico did the art, which is just, and Michael Janine did the art for the current day Batman stuff. And I would say Jeff had more of his vision with the modern day Batman stuff that led into the new golden age. But when it comes to like the Thomas Wayne story and stuff, we all really just pitched in and tried to break things and change things and did all that.
Jeremy, you're a fan favorite writer on The Flash and also a writer of some of DC's most popular projects, like the epic Green Lantern series, Lego movies, and of course, the awesome Battle of the Super Sons.
Yeah.
Without giving us a pitch, and we know you're not into pitches, we remember.
No pitches.
Which job do you want more of? Do you want more comics or do you want more animation projects?
Oh man, that's messed up.
You can answer however. Well, what's your ideal situation?
I mean, the fact is that I love doing animation. I want to do more live action, not just for the money, but I love doing it. Animation's really, really wonderful. The difference is that animation is such a collaborative exercise, and there's so many people involved that it is really a team sport. Comics is a team sport too, but it's a smaller team, and it's a little more personal. It's a little more. There's a lot more satisfaction. I would say it's like the difference between like doing live theater versus having yourself videotaped. Something about comic books. There's like an audience reaction, and there's a lot of gratitude from that, but it's also, you get to work with this artist and by work with, I mean that they are magic people, and they take your words and they make it something cool, and you're like, oh wow, and it's relatively quick. If I had my druthers, I would love to do. There are a couple like dream DC stories in particular right now that I have in my brain that I really, really would love to do. That I like. Oh, I would really love to do that. And so that's what I'd want to do. I mean, because I'm newer to comic books, so I really want to, like make my name in it and do some entertaining stuff. And just 8-year-old Jeremy, that's all he wanted to do, and it's like it took me to go from film and television to come back around to comic books. Like I came the weird way, and now I'm here, and 8-year-old Jeremy's like, yes, you did it.
And we're glad you're here. And on that note, I have to admit, I'm digging what's going on at DC these days. For a while now, I would say last 7-8 years, I feel like the whole line was disjointed for a little bit. It felt like the ongoing titles felt like standalone stories. It didn't feel like a shared universe, which is something DC is known for. And then DC assembled Team Flash. You, Jeremy Williamson, Mark Waid is back, Jeff Johns is back. You guys are all Flash guys. And guess what? With Flashpoint Beyond and some of the other stories that's been going on, you guys have been cleaning up the multiverse, or dare I say the divine continuum, right? Plus, you guys are literally cleaning up physical plot holes in the timeline. So I'll have to ask you this question. Why do Flash guys understand DC Comics so well?
That's a good question. I mean, I don't know if I understand DC Comics. I'm just such a fan of comics. And if you're a fan of comics, I don't know, like it drives me, continuity stuff drives me crazy. Like it drives me crazy. And I just want to make sense of it all. I always want to make sense. So like if there is a continuity error, I'm always thinking in my head, how can I fix this continuity error, And I had a bunch of story ideas post 800 of ways that I wanted to fix a bunch of continuity errors, because I think they're ripe for telling stories.
Right.
And a lot of times, sometimes they happen because, they're just random mistakes that, that were made between the writing, the art, and editorial, whatever. And you got to remember, like Warner Brothers in particular has gone through how many owners in the last years, and how many layoffs, and the fact that they put out any book is a miracle unto itself. But you're right, because like Mark Waid he's a continuity horror guy. So is Josh.
Right.
Jeff is definitely deep into it, and I'm into it. I mean, when I started writing The Flash, I kept putting in characters, and I kept waiting for them to say, like, you can't play with those characters. And then I was like, gosh, why aren't more people using? I was like, Spectre, Eclipso, Gem World. Like, I was just like, who else can I grab? And I was just throwing as many, and I still try to do that recently. I'm like, can I bring Power Girl in here? Can JSA show up? Can we, And
but you see, like that's what you guys all have in common. You see that thread?
Yeah. No, I feel very fortunate that I got to follow in their footsteps. Like right away, Joshua Williamson, wrote me, and he was really complimentary, but he was also just kind of like almost like a camp counselor. Like, oh, welcome to Camp DC. Like, are you okay? Everything you need, And then you have like the vets who were like Jeff, and I think Jeff and I hit it off because I think he appreciated how absolutely bonkers I am and how like high energy I am. And
exactly.
And then also I think he liked the fact that I knew a lot about weird stuff in the DC universe. And the crazy thing is I haven't even got to do the thing that like I'm more nutty about. Like I love the martial arts side of the DC universe, like I like the mystic side. Like those are weird stuff that I'm like, oh no, I want to see Lady Shiva, and whatever.
You was reading my mind. I was thinking when you said martial arts, I was like Lady Shiva.
Well, I did a movie called Batman Soul of the Dragon with Bruce Timm, and it's like Michael Jai White is like Bronze Tiger, and Michael Jai White is Bronze Tiger, and Martin was just off of John Wick 3, and he was the Richard Dragon, and it's like all that stuff that I loved. And then Mark Waid, I found out, I don't know if I told you this story, but like how I met Mark Waid was I was scrolling Twitter, and my local comic book shop was like, Mark Waid's here signing blah blah blah, and I'm like, I was like the Kool-Aid man. I like grabbed my keys, like told my wife, I'll see you later. I like broke through the wall and like drove down, and I pull up and I'm like, hi, Mr. Wade. Like I'm such a loser. I'm like, hi, Mr. Wade. My name is Jeremy Adams, and I'm writing the flight. He's like, oh, I love what you're doing, and I'm like, oh, and I found out he lives a couple blocks away, and so we've had lunch a couple times, and again, it's with him especially. And somebody like Jeff, I'm like this, like, tell me your secrets, old wise one, tell me everything. And what I found is that they're huge fans. Like, think about Jeff Johns. There is no reason he should be writing a comic book. He is so busy with other stuff. He is making gobs of money doing other stuff. And it's like, he does it because he loves it. He loves it, and I love that. I love it when I find people that are passionate fans about comic books and the superhero universe and whatever, and that just charges me up. It makes me want to do more and write more and etc.
Can we please finally talk about your Flash run? So Flash 794 and the 1 Minute War.
We're on the last couple of issues before we wrap this thing up, and this is the first kind of like time that anybody's let me I should backwards a little bit. I've been able to do like mini events within the Flash, obviously, but a lot of them got truncated because of other things. Like I was going to do on the Eclipso Gem World, that was supposed to be 1 or 2 issues longer, but the War for Earth 3 happened, so it was like, okay, we gotta wrap this up. So it feels a little more hurried in certain parts that I think. This was a chance, and I think it was because the concept behind it was such a big, high concept that everybody understood what it was, that they gave me a lot more runway to play with it. And my goal was, because there was going to be a lot more eyeballs on Flash than that had normally been on Flash, and I wanted to introduce all those individual characters and what makes them unique and what makes them special and why they're a family, and but it's a war. And in a war, it can't just be there's nothing bad happening, and it has to be a lot of push and pull. It has to be people getting hurt and dying and crying, but also, Bart and Ace stealing a car, like real fun moments. But we're at a point now where it's like there's the bittersweet aspect of like Wally's dead, and Iris is dead. And Jay was being tortured, but then he used a speed tooth to kill a dude or whatever. And now he's got a big gun, and Barry thinks he knows how he's going to get out of this thing. So you can feel my TV-ness in this series, where there's a lot of like, here are big trailer moments, here are big commercial moments, and here are like the cliffhanger ending that I want to bring you back for the next issue. I will tell you, the next 2 issues, they get a little weird. but if you've been reading The Flash since 768, there's going to be a lot of payoffs to a lot of things that I've already set up in certain ways, and I don't know if anybody's gonna like it, but you know what? I had to do it. So it's like there's a certain point where you're writing and you're like, this is kind of what I want to see. So let's see.
What did it mean to you to do The Flash? Now that we know this is it for a while, and it's leading up to issue 800. So tell us a little bit more about the 1 Minute War. But then also tell us a little bit about Flash and your Flash run.
So the 1 Minute War came about because it was a failed pitch. I pitched something else that they thought was so dark, and it wasn't going to, me. I'm not dark for too long, but it was a really dark issue that I wanted to do something interesting, and I can't really talk about what that pitch was because I'm using part of that post 1 Minute War, but the idea was like, oh gosh, it even harkens back to my first thing where Wally talks about all that can happen in a blink of an eye. And we've seen it happen, that bullet time type scenario when you see Quicksilver in the X-Men movies, you know, going super fast, or in the, you know, in the Flash TV series, you're just like, gosh, he's moving so fast that everybody's slowed down. And I thought, man, a whole war could happen in a blink of an eye, and that's really where it came from. And then trying to think about, well, who would these bad guys be, and how would they exist? And then I was reading a lot of Matt Fraction at the time, and I was really thinking up a name, and I was like, is this weird if I name these villains after Matt Fraction? but like, I'm a huge Matt Fraction fan, so it's not like I'm saying he's a villain, but Fraction and fractions of a second just kind of fit, you know? And I was like, okay.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so putting that all together, and some of the fun part of writing is trying to put all the puzzle pieces together, knowing the characters that I got to play with, and then knowing what I wanted to do with each of those characters, or at least expand them. Because some of these characters, the way that I modeled the Flash was like, I spent some time with Wally. I really wanted to spend some time with Wally, and then it was Wally and Linda, and then it was Wally, Linda, and the kids, and then it was Wally, Linda, the kids, and Barry and Ace, and you know, and I just try to build up so that it's not whiplash. You're not coming onto this book going like, who are these people? It's like, we've done these mini adventures, so we all kind of know who they are, but we also now get to see the metal, their character, and what they bring to the table. Like, I found myself loving Jesse Quick in a way. I was like, wow, I really like her as a character, and I never really thought of it. Ace was one that Kid Flash, I had read some stuff, and I was just like, I can't really grab hold of who he is. And so I did that issue where, you know, Wally, you know, kind of Ferris Bueller's Day Off, like sneaks him off campus of Titans Academy and like, let's go do this stuff, and tells him what it is to be a Flash and what their obligation is. As to, because by the time this airs, I mean, it'll be known that my run on the Flash has ended, and which breaks my heart. Like, it's not something I wanted it to happen. It's been everything, because prior to this, I had only done 2 Future State, like, mini backup things. Right. And then they said, like, do you have any ideas for the Flash? And I was like, yeah, I got tons of ideas. And they were like, okay, you can have it. And I was like, okay. And honestly, I've been on it longer than I think anybody thought, because they usually change writers fairly quickly sometimes. Mm-hmm. I wanted to beat Josh's record of 100 issues for sure. But being able to explore the character and like, this, how do I explain this? Like, Flash was never my favorite character. He was not, you know, he wasn't the character that was at the forefront of my mind. You know, I was like Batman and Spider-Man and X-Men and like all that stuff. And so what was funny about it was like, I determined when I started writing him, I was like, I want to find out how to fall in love with this character and fall in love with the Flash. And I started having so much fun being weird in this book, and just like letting it rip, whether it was like fourth wall breaking or intergalactic wrestlers coming down or whatever. Like, I was just having so much fun, and no one seemed to stop me. And it was like, okay. And then the more gratifying thing was that like fans of the Flash started finding it, and they started like really promoting it, and they would like talk about it and give me kudos. And they would also like, I would see them talk about Hartley coming back to the Flash, like the Pied Piper. That came back just because fans were like, we'd really love to see Pied Piper back. And I hadn't thought about it, you know? And it was like, why are these guys just talking about this? Because there was a gap in some of my Flash knowledge. And then I was like, oh my gosh, he is such an integral part of this family and this team. And then it was like, okay, how do I bring him back in a neat way? And how do I make Linda go to the forefront? And there's so much of them in the run of it that's a mirror to who I am and what I'm going through as a person, because I'm a husband and I have 2 kids, and there's so much of that, and trying to be an empathetic person in a world of extremes where everybody hates each other. And so I always feel like the thing I always think about Wally is like, you know, all the traumatic aspects of everything that Wally has gone through has given him a lens to look at the world with so much empathy that he doesn't just strike out. It's more like, how can I help? How can I listen to this person? How, even if I disagree, is there a way I can move around this without actually punching someone or whatever? And so that's been a thrill. I mean, I couldn't ask for anything more. And so by the time they asked me, didn't ask me, by the time they told me they were moving me off of it, I was crushed.
So how does that work? You've been on Flash longer than you expected. You just mentioned, and so what dictates those changes when you're a guy that's popular? I mean, it's hard to follow up a guy like Josh, but you did.
Thank you.
And Josh, I think Josh was doing like 2 issues a month for a while.
Yeah.
Like he was
crazy.
Yeah. And then here you come and you're still keeping that momentum going. Yeah. And then so what dictates that change and taking you off when the iron is still hot with you?
I don't know. I mean, I was so depressed about it. And I was and because I've grown, it's weird to find yourself like growing. You're like, I love these characters. They're not mine. They're not my toys.
Right.
And it's like, but you find yourself totally attached to these fictional characters. And then you're told, oh, you got to put the toys back in the toy box.
Damn.
And it's crushing. And at the same time, they're like, but would you like to do Green Lantern? And I'm like, dude, I'll do anything, because I've really enjoyed doing the comics. But yeah, I mean, I'm still not over it. I'm still mourning it because.
Damn.
So Jeremy, you've worked with a lot of artists in a short period of time. Yeah. Like literally 2 or 3 on a different on one book, right? And so can you explain to us how that communication works when you're working with multiple artists?
Well, originally when Mike Cotton was the editor, he kind of handled that. He must have had relationships with a lot of pretty impressive artists, because that first run, it's every issue we had a different. I was writing pretty fast, and I was writing a lot in advance, so that gave us the ability to get different artists, and it kind of fit the story. So very quickly, I got the privilege of working with these different sorcerers along the realm. And I mean, at the moment where like Kevin Maguire did that, that Justice League, like jumping into Reverse Flash's body, I was like, oh, it doesn't matter if they kill me tomorrow. Like, this happened, like I did this thing and Kevin Maguire drew it, and it's like, I'm done. Good. It's like, this is great. So that was remarkable. And then I found, a lot of kindred spirits, like, Serge, who did the annual this year, is wonderful. Torrin Clark, who's been doing the incredible covers as of late. He and I really hit it off, and Roger's doing a great job on 1 Minute War. But Fernando Passarin has been, he's been like psychic for me.
Super vet over there.
Man, every time I write something, and what I see in my head, he does it almost exactly, except it's much better. But it's always the kind of representation of what I'm thinking, and he's so good at it, and he's so sweet, and he'll always like return the art with like an excuse about how it's not up to snuff, and I'm looking at it like, are you insane? Like, this is like the greatest thing I've ever seen. And I think he's like Scotty on the Enterprise, who's just like, I can't do it. And he's like, I can totally do it, because it's incredible. But obviously I've had so many amazing collaborators in that way. And that's been so, Amon K during the Dark Crisis tie-in, they've all been really remarkable. I've been very, very fortunate.
So are they emails? Are they texts? Like, how do you communicate?
I just went off on like the praise be the artist campaign. So usually what happens is the way it's supposed to work is like, I'll write the script, it'll go to the editor will send to the artist. But very quickly, the artist will start sending stuff back, or if they have questions, or even in the descriptions, I'll be like, it looks something like this, and maybe I'll put a picture, or I'll describe something if they have trouble with it. But I try to open up a line of communication, because it's collaborative, and it's as much as it's mine, it's really theirs, because it's such a visual medium. And I think the way that I've learned to approach it, I've tried this early on, because this is kind of what I do in animation. In animation, you write a script, and I'm trying to write it in a way that the storyboard artists, who are artists, can be very excited about what they're doing. I would think if I was an artist, which all credit to Roger Cruz, because there's a lot of talking in this book, in the 1 Minute War. But I would imagine that 2 people talking in the room and drawing that over and over, you know. Like, it was just really aggravating. So a lot of times I think about what's going to be exciting for the artist to draw, what's going to be really interesting for them to draw, because I imagine for them, they want to draw cool stuff,
right?
They want to have fun, you know, and it doesn't need to be somebody just talking, and that's, you know, you have to have,
let's say the talking heads each panel.
Yeah. So it's like, oh yeah, but there's an alien. Or I remember Amanke on the Dark Crisis tie-in, I had the scene where you know, the Mad Max Barry is wrecking his car through the wall, outside the wall of where the fraction landed on that land when I was seeding that stuff early on. And he sent back the art and he was like, I could do a whole book on this. And it was like, the car was so rad. And it was like, it got me so pumped because I knew that he was pumped, you know, and there's such satisfaction in knowing that the artist is having a good time, and they're having, like Fernando, when we did the intergalactic space wrestlers, the Wham Wrestlers Across the Multiverse, he was like, can we do more of these? Like, he was like, this is, I want to do space wrestlers, you know? I'm like, I know, me too. He has to come back and defend his title. You know?
All right, let's talk about my second favorite comic title, Green Lantern.
Hey,
I'm hearing things like Hal Jordan would be grounded on Earth.
Yes.
Associated with your upcoming stint on Green Lantern. Typically, fans complain about when they hear characters that are known for flying being kind of grounded somewhere, like Hicks, you know, making characters less powerful or boring or whatever. Yep. There was a literal Superman story called Grounded that came out years ago that people hated. Tell us what's pumping you up about Green Lantern, shifting gears from all the stuff going on in hyper time and all of this, and then now you're going to actually not even the whole sector. Is it just Earth or Sector 2814, or just Earth?
So so it's interesting because when they asked me to do Green Lantern, there was certain things they specifically wanted to happen, and they wanted to have Hal more earthbound, and I was like, but there has to be a reason. And so that's where my mind started figuring out what else was going on. And what I love about Hal, what I'm learning to love about Hal, because I think Hal can be kind of a cipher. He can be kind of a character that everybody just attributes something to. I worked on Green Lantern, the animated series, and I think one of the things that was really helpful was that Jim Creek, who ran that show, and Giancarlo Volpe, they had a picture of Hal and Kilowog and some other characters. And above Hal, they had a picture of Captain Kirk. And I was like, oh, I get it. He's confident. He's charismatic. He's unstoppable. He has a smile. It's like there's a bit of an ego, but I think whereas some people might write him to be a bit of a hothead and uncontrolled and stuff,
right.
I think he might be that, but he is controlled. Like, he's smart. He's a pilot, for goodness sake. That's not a dumb person's job. And if you look back at the original, Green Lantern, he was like building like a test thing to a simulator for his craft. So he has some sort of engineering skills. But I wanted it to be like those movies where it's like, what happens when, the high school quarterback left the town and he walked back in, and it's just like, and he sees his ex-girlfriend, like, hey, how's it going? And she's like, I'm seeing someone. And he's like, like there's just so much. He's Tom Cruise. He's like kind of Chris Pine. Yeah. He's got that charisma, but there's a deeper mystery because he's left Earth for so long and he's been doing stuff with the Corps. And there's that military aspect, there's that police aspect of it,
right? That
it's like, why would he come back to Earth?
Exactly.
And that's going to be, and there has to be a reason, and it's not going to be left untold. And why is Sinestro around? Green Lantern fans are not going to have to worry about, is it just him on a dusty road every day? You know what I mean? He's not quite Shane Kane. He's not going from town to town and like fighting bad guys with his feet. He's Green Lantern. It's called Green Lantern. You know what I mean? Like
there you go. That's what we wanted. That's what we wanted, not Superman Grounded. That's where it was like,
Jeremy, you've mentioned that your dad also worked in comics.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what you learned about comics growing up with a dad in the industry, and what does it mean to you to follow in his footsteps?
It's a weird catch-22 because my parents got divorced when I was really, 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 really young, and so comics, film and television were always kind of the safe place that we could talk about things. And I knew my dad had drawn some comics, and I found out not too long ago that he had drawn more than I thought. Like, I mean, he had done some Captain Adams and Alpha Flight and in the 80s, but it was always like, we're estranged, we're not close in a lot of ways, but that was always something that was a safe place to talk about. And because of that, I think it was reciprocal. Like, my dad was, under the table when I would go visit my dad, and then I'd come back to my mom, I would have like a stack of I'd have The Dark Knight Returns and Daredevil Born Again and like a slew of stuff, weird stuff like X-Mutants and weird, Dark Horse stuff and EC stuff and like just strange, some out of the box stuff, but a lot of superhero stuff too. And so it just became a thing where it was all consuming. He bought me my first comic book that I remember, which was a Detective Comics after I got a shot when I was a kid before my parents were divorced. But then I remember the first trade he gave me was the Dark Phoenix saga. And that, nuked my brain.
Yes.
Not only with how sad it was, but that scene with Wolverine in the sewer where it's like, it's my turn. I was like, oh my gosh, I gotta be
133. 133.
Yeah, like, I'm taping chopsticks to my forearm. Like, let's go. It was that.
I love it.
It's always going to be it's weird to have. It's everything I wanted, but it was also a product of that was a connection point with me and my father too. And he knows what's going on now, and he's messaged me and told me how proud he is of me doing that stuff. So it is strange. It's a strange feeling. It's neat. I don't know. It's wild.
I think it's cool, man, and it's kind of like fitting because it's like an evolution. It's like you have Dale Curry, then you have Steph Curry.
Yeah, right.
Flashpoint Beyond question. Going back to that, Flashpoint Beyond introduced readers to the Divine Continuum, a new concept that details times and space within the DC Omniverse.
Yeah,
it seems like over the past few years, DC has attempted to explain its complex fictional reality, for years and years. So, whose idea was it to redefine it again with the Divine Continuum?
That is just a Jeff. That is a hardcore Jeff Blackboard moment. That was him. I'm like, okay, explain it to me again. I'm too dumb to get. You know what I mean? Like, I was like. All right. Say it again, but slower.
Talk about that moment. So he's talking about the Divine Continuum. It's DC. Literally, it's like he's a play on DC too.
Yeah, and so he talks about it in terms of like he talks about hypertime, Divine Continuum in terms of like emotion and multiverse and like emotional choices can change things. And I'm like, okay, but this is the thing about Jeff, and this is what I think is so fascinating about him. He's playing a chess game that I am like looking at through the opposite side of a telescope. He's doing stuff sometimes that I'm just like, oh, this is because you have a story that's, 12 issues down this way, or whatever. And sometimes I think, I don't know, sometimes he's holding his cards a little bit. And
it's almost like Batman.
Yes, that's exactly right. Just Batman. That's totally right. And I am, Batmite, like running around, just like, hey, I'm a big fan. Go have some adventures, and then he does something, and I go, oh my gosh. And there is the weird part of it is the nerd part of it is like, I don't necessarily want to know because I want to discover it too. You know what I mean? Like that's the weird catch-22 because I don't get any I don't get any copies of World's Finest. I gotta go to the store and buy it. Because I'm like, I wonder what Mark Waid's gonna do with the Demon Naj. I'm an idiot. So it's like whatever money I make, I'm just like, and it like goes back in, and I'm checking it out. So it is funny to me though, because you can tell sometimes it's like, oh, he's got a plan for something that I don't know.
If you can explain like how your Green Lantern title kind of functions, how's the Green Lantern order going to be? Because this is going to be a number 1. Yeah. And so how are they stratifying all the rest of those characters in relation to your title? Or is it just going to be one Green Lantern title and it's going to be yours?
It is going to be 1 right now with mine, and Philip has a story for John Stewart. Mm-hmm. And like I said, Sector 2814 is quarantine. So
that's it. That's all, folks. Okay.
Okay.
Well, I will tell you, I mean, the further on I get, and hopefully the more comfortable I get, and hopefully it sells and people enjoy it, people are there for it. I've got some real fun ideas, real fun things to get fans excited about it, and some stuff that I want to do for fans in regards to it, but we'll see.
Well, we're excited about it, Jeremy.
It's going on my pull list.
I think it's kind of refreshing where we're kind of starting Green Lantern with Hal Jordan with the number 1. Yeah. And then it's a good jumping on points for people like me, who I'm a Hal Jordan fan, and right. I feel like Hal Jordan sometimes gets the Wally West treatment where he kind of has to get shelved and sidelined because it's like crowded on Earth with GLs. And so, what do you say to that?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, that's a weird DC predicament sometimes, which is like, well, we have 50 Flashes and 18 Bat family members, and like, and how many superhero members. And all I would say is that, if I could caution DC in any way, because the whole new initiative is that they're trying to go back to the basics and introduce one character at a time. And that's kind of that was my model for the Flash, as I said. It's like, I think that's the most effective way to onboard characters is that, you start with somebody, you show them the universe, the world that they live in, and you bring in some other people. I actually think though with Green Lantern, if they ever did it, like my favorite run of Green Lantern, it was I think it was Tomasi on Green Lantern Corps, and then Jeff on Green Lantern.
Yeah.
Like those two at the same time was so rad. And it was so great to be able to be like, oh, I'm reading this, but then here's this other stuff that's happening. And it was so awesome, And
it was seamless.
It was seamless. And it was almost like the time when they did, when Chuck Dixon was running the Bat books, and it would be like Batman and then Nightwing and Robin. It would be like Nightwing and Robin. They would like go in and out of each other's books, but it all like was right with the Bat books. Like all the Bat books, Birds of Prey, it all seemed like it was all operating at the same time, like there wasn't continuity issues. It was just
that's DC's tradition. I feel like they got it more than anyone when it came to superhero. That dynamic right there.
I also think they had a lot more money flowing, so it was like easier my point is like, because I think all those, like how many people begged me to bring Kyle and back for to meet Wally and stuff like that, and there's a lot of that. And I love Kyle too, but I love Guy Gardner a lot.
I love him a lot. Me too.
Yeah. One of my favorite runs in comics was in Justice League International when he knocked his head, and I don't know, it was like a year that they made him a pacifist. And then it was like my 2 favorite covers in comic books is the one where Lobo is like over Guy Gardner, and Guy Gardner's like in a tear, and then next was opposite, and Guy Gardner's like, I'm back, and I was like, yeah, Guy Gardner's back, and you're like, he's a jerk and he's a misogynist, and it's like, I love him, where he's singing the Star Spangled Banner as he's hitting, the Rocket Reds. I was like, yeah, get him. I love that guy. I love all those guys. And John Stewart's another character but I'm privy to a little bit of what Philip is doing. And that is like, by the way, you want to talk about 2 levels of writers. I'm sitting here and I'm like, I'm going to write this movie. And Philip's like, Lord of the Rings. You know,
Back to comics, of course, but this is a stash question, Jeremy. So we want to know about, do you collect, and did you collect prior to getting into comics? And if you do, can you please tell us about some of the heat in your collection?
Oh,
so you got books from your dad, but did you collect on your own too? Like what?
I mean, when I was a kid, we didn't have any comic book stores where I grew up, so it was always antique shops.
Okay.
And you know, like my favorite one is like, you know, it's not even Charlton, it's Modern Comics, Blue Beetle #1, which is like old school Ditko stuff, which is my favorite. And then, you know, it's hard because the stuff that I love is the stuff that I got. So it was like, oh, the Born Again floppies, I'm gonna of course get those, you know. As far as like really classic ones, honestly, I don't think I have anything that's like really, you know, all of us have a Spawn #1, you know. And this is the thing, I was buying, and what
I have like 3.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I know. It was like any Image book, I have them all. You know what I mean? And I was such a nut when that happened too. But that was near the end of when I stopped collecting because it just got so expensive. It was right around. It was not just the Image books, but I remember getting, you know, the X-Men ones, the Jim Lee cover, you know, the you put together, and then X-Force ones with the cards. I thought it was really clever, and I would like X-Acto blade the plastic so that I could get to the card and be like, oh, that's so cool. And I'd put it back and like try to tape it. Like, what am I doing?
that Deadpool card that came in the X-Forces is actually like $100 card now.
Shut up! Okay, well, I'm so I've got I don't know how many long boxes I have, but I have a small place, and they used to be accessible, but then I had children. And so things have started like being, in the wall somewhere. And but I also bought quantity over quality as a kid. So there was this thing that would happen would be like, well, I could get, 6 of these New Universe titles in the dollar bin, or one, whatever it was, and I'd be like, I'll take those New Universe titles, and I've got every New Universe book. Because I was just like, Star Brand's awesome, whatever. And then the other stuff that I really collected was Mark Gruenwald stuff. So I was hitting the Captain America No More run, which I really, really loved. Mm-hmm. And then at the time, there was like the Armor Wars run and Iron Man. It was like that was the era of where I was doing stuff. And the hard thing, though, is now that I'm an adult that has funds, and it is really hard not to slip into that and start buying. Because right now, Fernando, I'll be like, Fernando, can you send me these pages? And he sent me a bunch of pages, like the first appearance of Gold. And so I'm kind of like and the first issue of my Flash that was drawn by oh my gosh, my brain just shut down, but he gave it to me, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So they've been sending me original art, and
wow,
that is way more dangerous to me, because
so there you have it. Now you got 08 pages, so I mean that just kind of ethers everything a little bit when you start going there.
Oh my gosh, but like you said, it's if I had more room to showcase them and stuff, and I had to go through and do a good winnowing of books because I literally have no room. And my wife is like, they send me comp titles.
I'm about to say, what do you do with all the comps?
I have them hidden all over, like I'm an old man hiding cash in the walls, man. Like they are hidden all over this house, and like I don't know what to do. Like so then I signed up with this, what's it called? I signed up with this artwork, comic sketch art. And they were like, oh, come sign signatures and people pay you. And I was like, oh, that's weird. And then they were like, you can bring your comps. I was like, oh my gosh, I can bring my comps. And then I thought that might be a great way to get rid of comps, I saved 3 of every issue, mainly because
you're saving.
How do they give you what are the quantities of comps? Do it give you what each
10?
Each cover?
It's like 10 for the regular cover.
Oh, wow.
And it's that's like cool. It's like 4 or 5 for each alt cover, depending on what.
Really? Damn.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I was gonna say, so it was Brandon Peterson who gave me the issue that, and I met him. I never met him, and he was at New York Comic Con. I was there for Super Sons and Mortal Kombat. And I was like, oh my gosh, Brandon Peterson, my name's Jeremy Adams, you drew my first run of blah, blah, blah. And he's like, oh, I've got some in there. I'm like, you've got some in there? And then I saw the first page, and I was like, man, if I was an artist, okay, I don't know if I'd ever do it digitally, because like, you can sell those, you know what I mean? Like, you can sell those for money, except I met Kevin McGuire there too.
Okay.
And Kevin McGuire does it only digitally. And
so he does it only digitally now?
Only digitally, and I'm sure he does sketches, maybe sketches, but like he does it digitally, and he sells prints that he signs. And I got this great print of Batman punching Guy Gardner in the face, but he's literally like, this is like literally printing money. I'm like, yeah, I guess it is, huh? You know. But Brandon was like, here, you can have this page, the first page of my Flash. I'm like, really? You know, like, to me, it's the world, you know. And the stuff that Fernando sent me, and then Jeff gave me an Eduardo Russo piece.
What you get? What page you get?
It's actually from Flash. From
Flashpoint Beyond. Which page?
No, from Flashpoint. Or from
the OG one.
The Flashpoint.
The original one.
You talking about with Rizzo with Brian Azzarello?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, so you got the one from Flashpoint from 2009 or 10.
Yeah. And framed and stuff, and gave it to me, and I was like, oh gosh.
I was like,
man, these are the type of presents I enjoy. You know. So
man, so there we have it, Chris. Man, he got pages and pages.
Yeah, like everything sitting behind me doesn't even matter when I talk about pages, bro.
Like I said, I collected runs of stuff that I really enjoy, and then if you found something you really enjoyed, then I would go after it. Whether it was like Len Wein's Blue Beetle run, I have all those, the further back I got, I used to play comic poker with a friend of mine, and I hated it because he would always bet like Mickey Mouse and Archie comics. I'm like, those aren't real. Like, you know, like, I was sitting there with like X-Men comics and all these cool comics, and I'll raise you this, and they'd be like, I've got 2 Jugheads. I'm like, no, I don't want this hand. You know?
So Jeremy, you're one of our favorite guests, man. Want to thank you for coming here. Is there anything else that you're working on, or anything that's, you know, in the near future, anything you want to say upcoming that you would like the Stash fan to know about?
Listen, what I can say is that not only Green Lantern coming out, but we have Mortal Kombat 4, which is called Mortal Kombat Legends Cage Match, which is bananas. And you know, listen, people really have been asking me and pushing me to do a creator-owned comic, and that is something I'm going to try to do this year.
Let's go.
I'm hoping to figure out what I should do, if I should do a Kickstarter, if I should try to get some publishing house to help me with it or whatever. But I that's something I really want to push into, you know.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, we're rooting for you.
Luck. Yeah,
I can't wait. I can't wait for GL. So next time you come on, so we're gonna have you and Tim back.
Yep.
And then also we're gonna have you and Mark wait.
Mark, please, let's go.
Yes, we're gonna make that happen. Okay. So
you get Mark on board. I would be there.
Okay. Perfect. Well, that's all for our show. If you like what you see, please subscribe and hit that like button. We are the Stash Bros. I'm Mike, speaking for Chris and Jeremy Adams. We are out.